What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Mr. Mustache MMA News. Today, I want to discuss an extremely exciting middleweight matchup, but before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. Alright guys, getting right into it, we got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Chris Curtis, UFC 287 in the middleweight division. We got Chris Curtis coming off of a thrilling knockout victory over Joaquin Buckley. I think it was UFC 282. Man, Action Man Chris Curtis has had a phenomenal UFC career thus far, going 4-1. His only lost to Jack Hermanson in a fight where he really just couldn't get it going. He was more just frustrated. Jack was just really just kind of not really engaging so much and making Chris chase him down, and just Chris just got emotional and was just trying to find that shot. He just his fight IQ just wasn't there that night. He was just kind of just fighting with pure emotion, right? But in his other matchups, right, he starts off really slow, and you could tell he's very hesitant. It almost seems like he struggles with his confidence. He struggles to like pull the trigger early on. But once he finds his reads, he starts getting hit a few times. And once he starts landing and finding success, usually it doesn't take much, and he's been putting dudes the fuck out. I mean, a guy who has 17 career knockout victories. I mean, Chris Curtis is a dangerous dude, 35 years old, right in the thick of his prime, in the middleweight division, and taking on a guy like Kelvin Gastelum, right? Who I think personally is a natural welterweight. He shouldn't be fighting at middleweight anymore. If you've seen my previous videos, you already know my thoughts on that. We got Kelvin, who's lost 5 of his last 6. He's on a 2-fight losing streak to Robert Whitaker, to Jared Cannonier. And he's definitely has his back against the wall in this matchup. He's trying to get his feet wet. He's trying to get back in the octagon, trying to get that W. Hasn't fought in a year and a half. He was supposed to fight Nasruddin twice, had a knee injury, ended up getting kneed in the face the second time around, both times on fight week. So he's definitely caught a horrible streak of luck in recent years, right? A guy who once fought for the interim title against Israel Adesanya. I mean, Kelvin at one point was just like number 2, number 3 in the world in the middleweight division. He struck gold. I mean, the fights where he took out Vitor Belfort. What was the other fucking matchup that he had? Jacare, where he retired Bisping. I mean, he had some phenomenal victories early on in his career. But lately, he's just been in a really bad slump. And I just think that the upper echelon of the middleweight division, they're just too big for him. And he just needs to get himself back down to 170. That, I think he will just thrive there. He's instantly a top 5, top 3 guy. He could definitely even fight. I could see him fighting Leon Edwards for the belt in no time. You know what I mean? But he's got to get the W here against Chris Curtis, right? So I think if Kelvin can get his shit together, stay focused, be healthy, be in shape in this fight, I'm really curious to see that, because he really just, he just, when I see his interviews, he's just so just carefree about everything, which just makes me worried, because when he fights a guy like Chris Curtis, Chris is out there in the gym at Extreme Couture, grinding every single day with guys like Sean Strickland and the likes of all those killers over there at Extreme Couture. And a guy like Chris, who always lacks the confidence, so he's always out there working harder in the gym to make himself better because he has to do that. He has that chip on his shoulder all the fucking time. That makes him that much more dangerous, especially with Kelvin. He just really just hasn't really just seemed very passionate about MMA lately. He just, okay, I'm here. You know, you don't really see that energy with him anymore. And he just doesn't really just seem to be focused. And I think if he can just dial it in, he could have a really good matchup against Chris Curtis. But I just don't think we're going to see that. But if we do see him get a victory, I'd like to see him go back to welterweight. I'd like to see him get an instant matchup against a guy like RDA. Who was it else that I was looking at? It was RDA, Luque, or Jeff Neal. I think would be really phenomenal matchups down there at welterweight for him to get his feet wet down there at 170. But he's got to get the job done against Chris Curtis here, because if he gets another victory, that'll be 6 out of his last 7. I mean, another loss. That'll be 6 out of his last 7. The UFC, they've been cutting guys a lot lately, and he could fall victim to one of their next roster cuts. And you got Chris Curtis, right? And if he can get the victory here, you got Chris. He's got some really nice matchups ahead of him. He could fight guys like Nasruddin Imavov, who recently fought his teammate and corner man, Sean Strickland. He could fight Dricus du Plessis, who is now ranked number 6, but they were supposed to fight like a year ago. So that could be a matchup that could be made again, right? Maybe the rematch with Jack Hermanson. I'm sure he wants to get that W back. There's a whole lot of matchups for Chris Curtis if he can get the W. And even if he takes an L, Chris Curtis is in a win-win situation here against Kelvin Gastelum. Because if he wins, he gets the win against a big name against a guy like Kelvin. If he loses, well, he lost against a really good fighter like Kelvin, and he's still going to have a plethora of matchups. A possible rematch with Brendan Allen, a matchup with Andre Muniz. He could fight Roman Dolidze. Maybe Derek Brunson wants to come back again. He can get a matchup with him. All these things could happen no matter what for Chris Curtis. But Kelvin, it's not going to be the same for him, and that's going to be the deciding factor. Kelvin is the guy with his back against the wall, and I'm really curious to see if he shows up in shape for this fight, if he shows up focused for this fight. I'm really curious to see, because a focused Kelvin Gastelum is a dangerous Kelvin Gastelum. But Chris, the Action Man Curtis, has been on a phenomenal streak, so I'm going to go with Chris Curtis. I think that he's going to get a decision victory in this matchup. Guys, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. Please, guys, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, guys, to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. All right, guys, Mr. Mustache, MMA News, out. Let's fucking go, fight fans.